Hi, everybody. Welcome to Rachel's Reviews and Happy New Year. We're so excited to talk about the last quarter, the fall box office, see how we did in our predictions. For me, not very well. So it's going to be fun to talk about. And I'm film critic Rachel Wagner, and Manda's here.
Hey, happy to be back. I'm really upset with my list now, but we'll see how it goes with this breakdown. I'm excited.
Both times that we've done this box office, I have managed to forget to ask you for one of your listings, which is just absolutely terrible. And I apologize. And just have so much fun talking that it's
That's
not
what
until
it
I'm
is.
listening again and I was like, wait.
It's okay.
But and then David Rosen is here.
Hey, thanks so much for having me back. I
Yeah.
I hear maybe I did a little better this time. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, David coming through clutch. And we started a little bit late, so we didn't have like Saw 10 or some of the stuff that was in September. Paw Patrol, which was like crushing it actually. Paw Patrol
No,
movie. Yeah.
always
Uh
does.
yeah, it
Yeah.
just cleared the 200 million mark. It just last, and I think it cost like, I don't know, 60 something million to make.
Wow.
So way to
I
go.
remember people were psyched about that. So,
Yeah.
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 They'll make another one now, so.
Oh, yeah. So just as far as, so we'll talk about box office, but just as far as quality, did you have from this quarter, did you have a couple favorites that you wanted to mention? What do you think, Amanda?
From there, I think for me the biggest surprise was like Wonka doing
Mm-hmm.
well. But
Yeah.
I had that high on my list because I trusted my boy Timothy Chalamet to deliver.
Yes.
And he did. So I was happy that is doing extreme. It's still like going strong at the box office. So I was really surprised with that.
Yes.
I'm trying to think now. What else did well? I'm trying to think of like my personal list that I was looking forward to. I think Migration I had
Mm-hmm.
high up there as well, and that was pretty solid from
Yeah, I
Universal.
enjoyed that.
Yeah.
I was the only one that had
Yeah.
that on our list, but what about Hunger Games? Did you end up liking that? No, you
I
had that
really
high.
liked it. Yeah, I
Yeah.
really liked it, and I
Yeah.
think the fans really just showed up for it. I didn't think
Yeah.
I had a feeling that they're like, okay, we're gonna go back into this world and gear up, and then it was like everyone was talking about the Hunger Games that weekend,
Yeah.
and I love that movie. I thought that was so good, and it
Seems
sucks
like
that
everybody really enjoyed it. That's
yeah.
a fan, which is what you want to please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's like,
So,
and it's also like a reintroduction. Like my 10-year-old, my goddaughter, she wanted to watch like the first Hunger Games. I'm
uh-huh.
like, okay, we'll watch it. And now she's on like a tear. She watched Catching Fire by herself. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I gotta sit down and watch Ballad with you because she's just like obsessed with it. So I think that's
Yeah.
the age group where you do fall into the young adult dystopian adaptations. So that was really nice to kind of have with
Yeah.
her and feel like a teenager again, which is great. So
David, did you have any favorites that debuted?
So, I mean, just like sticking to what was in my 10 predictions of like box office, hits, I loved Poor Things. It absolutely delivered. I also, I mean, really, I remember it wasn't like all 10, like I was like not expecting a lot out of the list, really, but
Uh-huh.
um the Taylor Swift Eras tour
It
that
was
was
really
just
fun.
it was so
Yeah.
good. Like, and I'm
that's
not
what I
even
love.
really the biggest Taylor Swift fan, but like it was just an incredible concert experience.
Yeah.
Um, and as the Aquaman fan in the group here, I will say that, well, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom is a good movie, quote unquote. It delivered exactly what
Fair.
I wanted out of a sequel from Aquaman. So,
Uh-huh.
I had a
Fair.
good time with it. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, not on my
LOL.
list,
Yeah.
not on any of our predictions, but the big surprise for me was Godzilla minus one.
yeah.
Yep.
That was just
Very true.
so much fun, such good characters and so well written. And yeah, and then another little movie that I loved was Fallen Leaves. I just thought that
Mm.
was really sweet little romance. And then the Iron Claw. I was worried that that was going to be this season's The Whale, which was not for me. But there was humanity in the Iron Claw that I personally didn't find in The Whale.
I
So,
genuinely think
Fair.
A24 screwed up by releasing the Iron Claw so late in the
Yeah.
month. They should have released it early December. It could have been one of the big hits of the end of the year.
well,
Oh,
and
yeah.
and I just think they should be promoting it more as far
Yeah.
as all the awards and everything like that. Like they should
Yeah.
have Zac Efron like whining and
My
dining
boy.
everyone. They should be.
They need to
But-
pull an Andrea Riseborough.
They do.
And they really do. Or you know what I would have done for A24, because they're really pushing hard for Past Lives, and I don't blame them for that.
Uh-huh.
They should have just carried it over to like 2024. If you're gonna drop
Yeah.
it like December 22nd of all things, like I would have just held it a bit longer and then see
Yeah.
what would have happened, which sucks. But like,
Yeah. Well, so what I did for this time, because we all had two honorable mentions, two dark horses, and so I gave 1 point for a dark horse that was in the actual top 12, and then I gave 2 points for the for getting something on the top 10. And then I gave 3 points for the right placement. And this is where David really did well, because we all had Taylor Swift in number 1, but then David got he had the right placement for Wonka, he had the right placement for Trolls Band Together, and the right placement for the Marvels. So
Yeah.
clean
That's
enough.
amazing.
That's what did it. Yeah, it's true. I'm happy Five Nights at Freddy's is up there, because like I banked on that one. I'm like, yeah, it's going to do well. And then it exceeded expectations too. And I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
I was like, damn, okay. The fans showed up like 5 or 6 times to go watch it in theaters. So
Yeah, because I
Yeah.
mean, I think it maybe is an argument that maybe same day and date doesn't really hurt movies that
Yeah.
much. I don't
It's
know.
so hard to say.
Yeah.
Like, there's no definitive formula or anything like that. But is
Yeah.
Wonka the hit of the end of the year? Is that right?
I would say
Well,
so.
let's go over it. So at number 12 is Migration. And so I thought that that this would do better just because of DreamWorks. I mean, just because of Illumination's history and track record, but it could actually leg out pretty well. Like it still continued to do pretty well, and there's no animated films until kind of like Kung Fu Panda. I mean, there's nothing for so that it could stick around for a while. So I'm not totally calling it a loss, but the thing with Illumination is they just make their films so cheap that it doesn't really matter. I mean, what did this thing cost? Like, I don't know, 60 something million. I mean, they're so cheap that they don't have the same kind of worries that your Disney's gonna have.
Sure.
Let's see here.
Yeah.
72 million. So
Damn.
unbelievable. Okay, then number 11 was Napoleon.
I don't know
So-
how. Sorry.
Wait, that was in my honorable mentions. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I actually put mine on the list, which is hilarious because I was so like, yeah, Ridley Scott. And then I went to go watch it. I'm like, all right, we're taking that one back.
yeah, it was, you had it at 9. I
Yeah.
had it at 7. Yeah, it was not great. I didn't love it. I thought it was really bizarre the way that they were turning him into this kind of lovesick hero. I'm like, he's a dictator. What? Like, are you kidding me?
I liked how weird it was. I just wish that they leaned in more. Like
that was
you know?
my thing too, David. Yeah, I agree.
Really?
Yeah.
I was just like, they are not showing like any complexity. Like it was just like, I just felt like it was a historical fluff piece. I mean, and boy, horse lovers need not apply. It was brutal.
It was so bad. I couldn't.
Oh my
Like,
gosh.
no, these poor animals.
Yeah. I don't know. It was just nothing. I don't know. I was like, what? I guess they'll just give any old white man a lot of money to make movies these days. It was not good.
Ridley Scott will get money to make a movie every year till he's gone. So.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
clearly.
he definitely will, and he won't care what he's making either. He's just gonna be like, I want to do what I want to do, and
Yeah.
then this
Yep.
is what we get.
I
So.
felt like I was watching Napoleon propaganda. It was just like, what?
It was bizarre.
Joaquin's delivery of
Yeah.
"You guys think you're so great because you have boats" has been burned in my mind ever since I watched it.
No, it's true. And I've been thinking
Oh.
about the ABBA song. Everything the whole time. I was like, Waterloo.
So good. I didn't do a
so
piecing
good.
it together episode on it, but if I had, I was going to use Step Brothers as a puzzle piece for Nepal.
Yes. It's
That would have been so good. Oh my god.
like a soap opera, maybe like.
Yeah.
And boy, it was
Don't know
not.
how.
I was nervous
Yeah.
about it, and I think I said in the episode that it was going to have to get good reviews, and then it could go somewhere because I had it at 4. I don't know what I was. That was crazy. But then Manda had it as honorable mention,
Yeah.
and David, you had it at 3.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It just, I mean, it was a pretty safe bet. A Disney musical about a princess. So, that should be an easy win, at least as far as the box office. But it was just such a nothing movie. I actually ended up seeing it twice because I had to for the podcast, so I could take notes the second time. And I just left thinking, I never have to see this movie again. Like, I would always rather see all of the movies that it's referencing and paying homage to than see it. There's no reason to see it.
My issue with it is just the fact that like they also didn't lean into all of those characters and like make it known that they were going to incorporate it. Like the meaning, the intent was there, but then they just didn't go full out.
Yeah.
And I think that's what bothered me the entire time. Like it was surface level.
Yeah.
So I'm like, let's just
And the songs weren't good enough. It certainly
Yeah.
wasn't funny enough. That goat,
was
little
so
of him
cute.
went a long way.
Valentino, he was so cute.
It was rough.
He made the movie. Him and the
He
star.
did.
That's it. The star I loved, and
The
it
star
didn't
was
even
cute.
talk.
The star was
Yeah.
cute. I liked some of the animation, but it was just completely forgettable. Like, and it's so hard because I'm thinking about what my Disney canon ranking and where would I put it. And there's like outright bad movies from Disney, like Chicken Little or something like that. But it's like, what's worse? Being outright bad and like trying things and failing, or just being completely bland and forgettable and I don't care about it at all.
Yeah, I'd rather bad over bland any day.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Same.
Yeah, I don't know.
I
So
agree.
it's gonna be low. It's gonna be low, folks. Okay, so then next was Exorcist Believer, and you were the only one, David, that had that on your list.
Yep.
So you and I don't
Well
know if
done.
you saw, did you see it, Manda?
Unfortunately, I did.
Oh, you did?
I was forced to go watch it. I told my cousin who's like in this like new horror kick, and he's like, "Oh no, I have to go see it." I'm like, "No, you really don't. You really don't have to go see it." And then I went, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, they actually made something like this." But to the people
It
who like
sounded-
it, it's fine. But I just,
Yeah.
it was a doozy to sit through that one.
And you had to do an episode of your podcast after it.
Yeah, we did a live show in the movie theater, and
Oh my
I mean, don't get me
gosh.
wrong, we had a fun time talking about it, but it was difficult
love
to come
that.
up with anything nice to say. Like,
It's
it was-
hard.
yeah, it was
The-
brutal.
I'd give them maybe like the makeup. Like that was pretty good. I mean, if the makeup was bad, then there would be a massive issue there on top of everything that happened. But
that
I'd say
whole I've just heard about the patriarchy scene, and that makes me just that's unbelievable. I
So
can't.
corny.
I
What?
don't get it. It's like, tell us, drill it into our heads what the original story was doing. Thank you. We get it. Thank you so much. Like,
Oh, well, I
Yeah.
mean, even though it ended up in the top 10, I mean, I can't believe that they spent $400 million to purchase the Exorcist franchise. Like, what?
Yeah, I
I
wonder
don't
when we're
know.
going to find out if they're going to actually move forward with more. Because I mean, although I guess if it made it in the top 10, it's a somewhat of a success. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I
I
don't
mean, I
know.
should have had the box office mojo open. Yeah, I mean, but still, I don't think it's anywhere close. I mean, what are they thinking? It's like every movie
Crazy.
has to be a tax write-off these days.
Literally.
What? Are you a fan of Rachel's reviews? Do you look forward to Family Movie Night, Female Film Critics panels, or the Talking Disney podcast? If so, please consider supporting the podcast by becoming a patron. As a patron, you get to access monthly events such as the watch-alongs and Q&As, where you get to talk to stars and find out the behind the scenes of the movie making industry. And you can pick what I review for Family Movie Night or even become a guest on the podcast. Podcasts and YouTube channels are expensive, and I really, really could use your help. I would so appreciate it. You also get to be a member of the Facebook group where we talk about all the films that we're seeing, and we have so much fun. Go to patreon.com/hallmarkies and select one of the Rachel's fan tiers. That's patreon.com/hallmarkies. Then we have Aquaman is next, and it is doing, I think, pretty decent international, but
Yeah.
I mean, they spent like they didn't even do a premiere for this, which is pretty bad.
Yeah, they were burying
They
it all the way. But
Yeah.
I will say I was away on Christmas trip, and so I didn't get a chance to see it until just 2 days ago. And the theater was pretty packed. So maybe it'll have some legs and it'll actually end up a little further up, when all things are said and done. But I mean, of course, it's not gonna follow up the $1 billion Aquaman the way they hoped. So
Yeah. Well, and like I said, it's doing pretty decent international, so that's got that at least.
yeah.
Um, let's see here. How's it doing currently? International. So total, it's made $255 million total.
Damn.
Yeah.
Compared to the billion, what,
Yeah.
4 years ago, I think? Excuse me. It was like they hit the billion. They're like, yeah, let's do that December release again, guys. And then it
Yeah.
just, yeah, I can't believe it.
I
I
don't know.
mean,
I thought the first one was boring. I thought this one was boring.
I liked
I
the first one.
I thought that the story, I didn't really like it. I mean, there were some decent moments between the brothers. But it just, I don't know. It's just not. I feel like Aquaman, it should be a little bit fun. And it was so serious with all these like uh these these meetings and the weight of being king and how are we going to rule and
I mean, he does get peed in his mouth 3 times,
yeah,
so
I guess, yeah.
it was a little silly.
I liked when Mara redirected the P. I thought that was the best one. And I was like, good, nice girl. Nice. I was like, good job. I think it comes down to the fact that like Aquaman's such a foolish comic book character to begin with. Like everyone
Yeah,
makes fun of him. So they're like, let's actually make him serious. So I understand why they did that because he's taken as a joke 24/7. Like I remember watching like the Justice League
yeah,
animated show and he's just talking to fish. Like that's all he's doing. He's riding a whale.
yeah.
He has the
It's
worst costume ever. So it's
yeah.
it's one of those
Well,
things.
it's just interesting because I walked out of it being like that they took itself so seriously. It was so solemn and so boring. And
Mhm.
then I hear other people's reviews and they're like, it was too goofy, it was too silly. So I can't win.
Me. Me. That was me. I'm like, there's too many
But
jokes in this. I can't do it.
yeah, yeah.
It
So
works if the jokes land, because if the jokes don't land or they're like kind of weird and the delivery's weird, then that's where I have the issue.
yeah, there was just
Mhm.
too much Atlantean politics for my taste.
I
You know, it's like
know.
let's just tell a better story. But
Yeah.
it was second for you, David, and it wasn't on your list at all. So you were smart, Manda. I had it at 6. So
It's for personal reasons. So why it's not on the list, but besides the point. I'm just happy it's all over. That phase is
yeah,
just done. Let's
let's
just move
move
forward.
on.
Move
Let's move
on.
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
Okay, next is the Marvels. And
Yay.
yes, so the Marvels, I had at 5, and David, you had it correctly, uh, correctly rated at 6, and Manda, you had it at 7.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one was one of my least favorite movies of the year. It really made me mad because I just felt like it was Disney's and Marvel's saying, like, we think that we can put out anything. We don't have to care about coherency and plot. We don't have to care about story. We don't have to care about character arcs making sense and the audience knowing what's happening. I mean, it was just so frustrating. One minute it's Captain Marvel and genocide, and the next minute it's singing cats, and the next minute it's Nick Fury, and then they're back to genocide again, and then they're back. And it was just so obviously that they had a story about this planet and genocide and Captain Marvel and everything like that, and it must not have tested well. And they're like, okay, well, let's interject a lot of fun. And they didn't even like care. It's like they were like, spin it around. Yeah, we're gonna put a scene there. 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 And
Yeah.
I just really made me mad. I'm like, that's not how you make a movie. You have a story with an arc that you can follow. I didn't even understand what the heck is Captain Marvel doing with the sun, and the sun is powering the earth, the planet, but there's no air on the planet, but there's no, it really annoyed me. And I was just so glad that it didn't do well, because I just don't think that Disney should be rewarded for putting up whatever that was. And so yeah, it might be my least favorite Marvel movie. I just really didn't like it. So
That's fair.
um
I get it. I think there was
yeah,
a lot of meddling in post with this film. I think that Nia
clearly.
DaCosta, oh yeah, she like I love the fact that we got to see her in the director's chair. I think there were some great things that she did in the film, but again, like you could tell it was so choppy in post and that they
I
were
would
having
bet
issues.
money that her scenes were the genocide, planet,
100%.
all of that. And
Yeah.
then it was the other stuff that was
It's
wedged
the
in.
spunky stuff. Like it's the Miss Marvel spunky stuff. I personally think that they rushed into this second installment. I think
Yeah.
that they needed to have, you know, maybe like a Monica and Carol team up versus like shoving Miss Marvel in there. I think that was
Yes.
way too soon. As much as I
Yes.
love her, she's my girl. Like I love Iman Vellani so much. She's a superstar.
She
But
is super cute.
it's just so much to like put in a trio when no one actually cares about Carol Danvers in the first place. They haven't had enough build up to Carol, and that's been one like
Mm-hmm.
my major issue with Brie Larson is Carol Danvers. They don't know what to do with her.
Yeah.
And like her
No.
power set's absolutely incredible, which is one of the main reasons I loved the Marvels is because let me see all these powers. Thank you. Give them at full capacity. Let's actually see them play around with
But
it.
it's not like she should have just wiped out that lady. I mean, it should not even have
Right.
been close. This is a woman who's
Right.
taking down the sun. She just going
I
right into
know.
it, and
But
and she almost defeated Thanos by herself.
they
And,
didn't
and this
because
whoever this lady is going to be some kind of threat.
I
It's
know. But
ridiculous.
that's what I'm saying. It's like it's so inconsistent with her power set. Like you can't show us all of that. And then
Yeah.
she can't take out Thanos and like his entire planet on her own because of like plot convenience. Like it just doesn't, it never made any sense. I liked the Marvels. I didn't think it was
Mm-hmm.
fantastic, but it was a step in the right direction for these characters personally. But it was overstuffed and they're not
Yeah.
letting these characters breathe. That's my
Yeah.
issue. It's like, let's just shove everyone in there. That's why they're reconstructing the entirety of like Captain
Yeah.
America. You know what I mean? Because they had the Hulk storyline in there. They had all other like excess that's in there. So
Yeah.
now the test screenings aren't doing well. And I'm like, can we just strip this down and go back to basics? Which
Yeah.
is not, it's not going to happen. But
Like,
yeah,
it's
we
always
can
been a
hope.
problem with Marvel of having faith in their storytellers, but they didn't used to
Yeah.
be as bad as they are now.
Yeah, it's
They,
getting worse.
you used to be able to get like, okay, this is James Gunn movie. This is like we had things like, the Edgar Wright situation and whatever,
Mhm.
but it did feel like, okay, this is a Ryan Coogler movie. This is in the
Yeah.
past more. But ever since Eternals, I feel like it's just, I don't know. It's been a lot of problems in that regard. And they just like lost their confidence, I think, because it's become so bloated. And they just think that they can just release anything and people are going to accept it. And clearly they're not, because it did terribly. And I'm glad.
Yeah, it's a mess. And I'll just add that I saw so many, I know it's just anecdotal, but so many just, random, movie watching friends of mine say that they're just going to watch it on Disney Plus. So like they just had no desire to go to the theater to see this. They were just like, this could just be like one of the shows, basically.
Yeah. And people are like, if you don't like this movie, people are like lumping you in with like the incels and the terrible, horrible people. And I'm like, if anything, the feminists should be the most mad about this movie. If anything, they should be the most upset, because they took a female person of color director and they ruined her vision. Like, you should be mad about that. You shouldn't be defending the giant corporation. And there are those terrible people online, that have made 5 million videos about Brie Larson. I get it, but everybody involved deserved better than this hack job. And you're not feminist for bringing that up.
That's what I went through with the first one, because I didn't like the first Captain Marvel, and I was just dragged like the whole time. Ridiculous. I'm like, but I'm a woman. I'm allowed to not like a movie that has a female lead for reasons. Like, it's okay.
Ridiculous.
So then we have Trolls Band Together was next, and you and I, Manda, we had it very high. We both had it at number 2. And
we were so disappointed, Rachel.
And then David, you had it at 5. And this was a terrible film. I hated it so much.
I didn't see it, so.
You don't have to. I'm going to be honest. Like, I was so, listen, you do not market an NSYNC reunion the entire time, and these guys come in with the last 2 seconds of the movie. Like, you just you don't do it. You don't do it.
Literally maybe 30 seconds. It was like a joke. And you have an entire set of characters that are a boy band in the movie, and you don't have NSYNC play those characters.
And it's like they're voice acting too, so I don't think it would have been that hard for them to act. And you know what I mean? Like, I understand that they are, like, I get it. It's different than live action. It's like just a different vocal register. So I'm just like,
all of them have done voice acting in the past.
Yeah. So I'm like, I don't understand why you wouldn't just do it. They're right there. I would have
JC, but I feel like the rest have. I'm sure Lance Bass has done voice, and Joey Fatone for sure.
Joey definitely. That's why I'm like, you have actors in insane. Like, I just don't get it. I don't understand.
It was so irritating, and Poppy just was wearing on my last nerve.
I usually love her. I'm like, yay, Spunky, I love you. But it's like, what? She was sticking herself into everything, and I'm like, this is not your story right now.
Yeah,
like, let's just reel it in.
It was rough.
But that didn't happen.
It was rough. All right. Then there was Wonka at 4, which is it's still clipping along. It's still doing well.
Yeah.
So yay for it. I've seen it twice, and I enjoyed it both times. And I was kind of surprised. Not just that it did well, but I was a little surprised how warmly it was received critically. I was expecting it to be something that I was going to have to defend. Because to me, and I had a tweet about this the other day, I feel like it's almost identical to The Greatest Showman. And people were in the critic sphere, people were like, oh, this is the worst movie ever. It's terrible. And I'm like, this movie it's basically set at the same time period. It has a very similar style of music. It's about a dreamer, just the same. I just feel like it's very similar in tone, feel, style, type of music. And yet, so I was expecting going out of it, I'm like, oh, I'm going to have to defend this one. I'm going to get ready because people are going to hate it. And I was really surprised that everybody was like, it's wonderful. It's great. And it was delightful. I mean, I really hated the whole Keegan-Michael Key character and that whole thing.
Same.
That was awful. But for the most part, it was fun. I enjoyed it.
It was a good time. I've been
Yeah.
listening to the soundtrack, so that's how you can tell that I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Did you see it, David?
I saw it on a screener at home, and I think I would have
Mm,
liked it so much better if I had seen it in the theater. It
Yeah.
it
yeah.
didn't really work that well for me sitting, alone on my couch at like 8 a.m. one,
Uh-huh.
one random morning.
Yeah,
Uh,
I feel that.
I actually like the Keegan-Michael Key character though. So
I don't know. I don't like the fat jokes, and not that
yeah,
everything has to be body positivity or whatever, but I didn't love that.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think the plot was a little weird that they chose this whole indentured servitude thing, but
Mhm.
it was fun. I enjoyed it.
It was a
Um,
good time.
yeah. Okay. So then we had Five Nights at Freddy's at 3. And I didn't have this because I was nervous about that same day and date. I thought that was going to hurt it a lot more.
Yeah.
And then you had it, Manda, at 4.
Yeah.
And David had it at, you had it at 9.
Hmm.
Did you see, I know you saw it, Manda. What'd you think of it?
So as someone who has watched my friends play the game, I thought they didn't do it justice whatsoever. I gave it a low rating because the storyline in Five Nights at Freddy's has to do a lot with something that they like the director made up on the spot, has nothing to do with the actual like lore of the games. So that was a gigantic misstep, and like it just didn't make any sense where like the horror elements are there because you have the security guard looking at these, the security tape, and then he hears stuff, and he has to like work with the lights and like opening and closing certain doors, and like that's the concept of the game. I'm like, it's right there. And then they just didn't execute it like the game. So that's what really annoyed me about it. And then the fans are just obsessed with seeing the animatronics. And the animatronics were fantastic. Like I have to admit, like they put all of it into the animatronics, but the story was nothing. Like a
Mhm.
big fat nothing. And it
Yeah.
annoyed me. I was getting more aggravated by the second while I was watching it. I'm like, you had it right there, like the visuals right there. You still didn't bring it
Like,
in,
why
and it
did
would
they
have
make
been
it so
easier.
boring? That's so weird.
They made it so serious. I'm like, I don't care about going into the dreams of this guy. Like, I don't understand why that was a thing at all. And like, if that was a different film without Five Nights at Freddy's, it would have been very interesting. The Ghost Children. I thought that was
Mhm.
like an interesting concept, but don't mix it together with something like this. Like, it just, yeah, I was very
Mhm.
upset. But the fans, my cousin was obsessed. I brought him to the screening, and he was just like, "Oh my God, this is so good." And I'm like, "Okay, well, fans are
Did
happy."
you see it, David?
I did not.
I didn't either.
Everything I've heard about it, it just doesn't seem like it's made for a 43-year-old person. Like, no. So,
Yes.
Hey, this is Jen Johans, host of the podcast Watch with Jen, which delivers a steady stream of great movie recommendations, thoughtful career deep dives, and first rate conversations with film critics, authors, actors, journalists, filmmakers, and more. You can find Watch with Jen wherever you get your podcasts or hear us first at our Patreon at patreon.com/filmintuition.
I forgot. I skipped over on accident. I skipped over Killers of the Flower Moon. That was at number 8. So that came in
Yeah.
at number 8. And I had that I didn't have that on my list. And Monda, you had it at 5.
Yep.
And David, you had it 7.
it's
Yeah.
interesting that and the Marvels are in the top 10 when like the whole story around those movies is how big of a flop each of those are,
Yeah, I
Right?
mean the whole season as a whole,
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
underperformed in a way. And they wouldn't be talked about as much if they hadn't been so expensive to make too.
That's the
Because
thing.
like,
Yeah.
I mean, Hunger Games, it's not like it made tons and tons. It was still coming up to that, but it wasn't that expensive to make. So it's doing really
Yeah.
well. Same thing with
Yeah.
Migration, even though it's down at number 12. It only cost $72 million to make. So
I think, yeah, they're slowly realizing that they have to lower the budget I think, for these films, because the ones that are came out on top like all year,
Yeah.
it was like the least amount of money that was used for that budget on some of them, not on all of them. But I'm just saying, like, I think the tide is shifting, because even if we look at 2023 as a whole, like the blockbusters did not do well, like whatsoever. So I think that it's really
Yeah.
changing, and
Flopbusters.
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah.
on
I
many
mean,
of them.
Wonka, another example. It only cost 125 million. It's made almost
Yeah,
400 million. So
see,
yeah,
it
uh,
happens.
if it had cost 200, $300 million like some of these, then we'd be having a different conversation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
I mean, it is crazy when you think that Godzilla minus one, that it cost $15 million. And I understand that things are different in Japan
Oh.
and the way they pay people and stuff, like I get that. But even if you were to like triple, quadruple it, like whatever, it
Right.
still would be nothing compared to what these, if it, what I'm sure we've got this Godzilla and Kong or whatever movie coming out. I mean, that thing's gonna be way more expensive. It's just interesting. It's very interesting.
That's true.
Okay, so but yeah, Killers of the Flower Moon, let's talk about it for a second. So I went into this a little bit hesitant because I did not like The Irishman, and I was really not a fan of Silence. So two Scorsese recent that I would just weren't for me. And so I went into this a little bit hesitant, really long, and I actually ended up really appreciating it. It ended up in my favorites of the year. I thought the story was really compelling and it was well told. I didn't feel the length that much. There were moments. There were moments where I do agree with the sort of the general consensus that Brendan Fraser and John Lithgow's characters felt out of place. I do agree with that. And so it wasn't perfect, but I do think it was a moving story, well told, and I'm glad that I saw it. What about you, David? What do you think?
Um, I was a little let down by it. Like I appreciated it more than I actually liked it.
Uh-huh.
I have
Same.
loved his last couple of movies. And I love Brendan Fraser in this movie. I think he's pitch perfect, but certainly a very different tone from everyone else in the movie. But I
Yeah,
think
that
he's
was the
doing it.
problem. It wasn't
Yeah,
Yeah,
calibrated.
it
Is
was
he's
how
so
it
doing
was.
jarring. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
he's doing exactly what he needed to do though. But that's another story. But no, I just thought that it felt like it was Scorsese trying too hard to tell this story from these different perspectives, and
Mm-hmm.
it I don't think it really came together in the way that it really needed to.
Mhm.
I also really did not like De Niro in this movie.
Interesting.
Who doesn't love De Niro? But I mean, I just
Yeah.
thought that he was too cartoonish.
He was a little over the top for me as well. I'm not in the camp that thinks he should be nominated or things like that. It wasn't a deal breaker for me, but I do kind of actually agree with you on that one. He
Mhm.
Yeah.
was a little silly for me for this
Yeah, I
movie.
will say the score is one of my favorite scores of the year, though, from Robbie Robertson.
So good. So
Mm,
it's like the beating heart of the entire film. Like without
yeah.
that score, I don't think certain scenes would have been as effective.
Yeah.
But I'm on the other camp where like I don't think this is DiCaprio's best performance at
Hmm.
all.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So to see people like, oh my God, it's like top 10 DiCaprio. I'm like, what, where? Like,
Yeah.
like it's fine if I'm like, it's fine if you do. I personally don't think you should be nominated. And like, I'm also in the camp that like, I like De Niro, but I also don't think that he should be nominated for this either. I think there are many other performances in 2023 that are more deserving of like that
Uh-huh.
spot. And I think it comes down to like, it's who they are. It's the names that are getting
Yeah.
nominated instead of the performance, unfortunately. And we know that the Academy has
Yeah.
a very like long list of
Yeah.
years
You
that
get
they
in that
do that.
club that they like you, and then other people just can never get in that club.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like Jake
so
Gyllenhaal for some reason. I mean, I guess he was
I
nominated
don't know
once,
why.
but he's like not in the club.
Blood
Poor
And
Hounds
Jake.
next year. Come on.
Let's see. Let's see.
but there's those actors who are always putting up good work and they just
Yeah.
never or almost never get nominated. And then there's ones that I mean, obviously your Meryl Streep, usually she's super good, but still, you're that are in your Julianne Moores and your Meryl Streeps and your, people that are in the club.
Yeah. Oh, you can definitely
Yeah.
see that. If I could kick DiCaprio out of Best Actor race right now, and I would shove Zac Efron in there so
Yeah, agreed.
I'm
Oh,
like,
yeah.
let's put you there, my friend. But
Mhm.
I love Leo. I just, it's what it is at that point,
Yeah, or
right?
I'd even though I didn't like love the movie, I would put Coleman Domingo for Rustin. I mean, it was an okay
Yeah,
movie. His performance
same.
was excellent.
I agree. I agree with
Mhm.
that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, well, so let's see here. Okay, so let's talk about Hunger Games. This ended up at number 2. Unbelievable. And I
Surprising.
didn't see it because I hate this franchise. So,
I didn't either.
and I
Oh
did have it.
no.
I had it at 8.
I love the Olivia
And
Rodrigo song though, but I didn't see the movie.
you didn't
Killed
have it,
it.
David, in your ranking.
No.
And Manda, you had
Wow.
it at 3.
Yeah, I did.
So what did you loved it?
I really enjoyed it, but I think because I like went through the book first, the
Mhm.
book is I can't do it. I had to force myself to read it, and it's like 600 pages, and I was like I was under a time crunch, and I had to finish this, but the book is so slow.
Mhm.
And that's why when I went to go watch the film, I'm like, this is 10 times better than the book.
Interesting. Yeah.
So I was really happy about that. I think I think a major factor to this is having the original director from the Hunger Games come back and direct this one because it's the same tone. Even though he's telling the story from a villain's perspective. Um, so that was a really different spin on it. Everyone's like, "Oh, you're sympathizing with like President Snow," and I disagree with that. You could still see like the beginnings of him turning evil and just what sets him apart in when he's in school. I love Viola Davis in this. She had room to play around being a villain. I didn't expect that side of her, and it was a lot of fun. But the star, honestly, is Rachel Zegler in this film. Many people didn't know that she had so many chances to sing. Obviously, it's the
Yeah, I
ballad.
heard it was like a musical,
Oh yeah,
practically.
it's like there's
Yeah.
like 8 songs, and she's incredibly talented. I went from like kind of disliking her
Uh-huh.
to really, really loving her, and I think she has a bright future ahead of her
Yeah.
after this. All it takes is one film and one press tour to change your perspective on an actor, because that's me with like Jacob Elordi, because I was a massive fan of Euphoria, and then I watched Priscilla and Saltburn and those press tours, and I was like, damn. Okay, I don't hate him as much. That's great.
Oh, yeah.
So I was really happy with
Oh, his
Rachel.
character is a bad dude in
Yeah.
Euphoria.
Oh God, he's the absolute worst character
Okay.
ever. Like made for TV. Like he's horrendous, but yeah, I'm just really happy that
Yeah.
ballad just reigns supreme here. And I think we're missing films like this. I think it was nostalgic, but at the same time, like you're reintroducing this to so many young
Mhm.
kids that it just warmed my heart in that case. I'm like, we need to go back to this type of storytelling in these films and bring back like the coming of age young adult fantasy films because that's what we're missing.
Do you think you had to have seen the previous films to appreciate this film?
Um, no, I think it works twofold. I think if this is it's a prequel at the end of the day, so I think that this also sets the tone both ways. Like if that makes sense, I think that if you go into this watching it blindly, that you may gain an appreciation for the
Mhm.
franchise and then go back to watch it because. I mean, Mockingjay Part 1 and 2 are like the worst films in the
I
franchise. Like we don't talk
Yeah.
about
I hate that
Mockingjay.
book. It was the
Yeah.
worst.
I couldn't even get through it. I'm gonna be honest with you. So I think that this is like you have Catching Fire number one if I had to rank them, because that's just still God tier filmmaking there and the book's so good. And then
Mhm.
Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes over the original Hunger Games. So that's saying a
Yeah.
lot because
Well, that's good
yeah.
because usually prequels are terrible. They
Yeah.
usually
Right?
tell you things that you don't even care about. Like, why do we need that
Yeah.
answered, you know?
Yeah, it's a
And
totally different
so maybe
angle.
I will. Maybe I will break down and watch it. I
Do it.
I really dislike those.
Give it a
I
go.
really disliked the books, and then I
Yeah.
watched the first movie and I hated it,
Hmm.
and so I never watched any of the others, and that's why I
That's
didn't
fair.
watch this one because I was like, I'm not going back and watching those other four movies that I and so,
Yeah, I get it.
yeah, but I'm glad for the. I mean, I always like that. I always want fans to be happy, you
Hmm.
know.
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
that I mean that was one thing that made me kind of feel, I guess, a little bit nicer about Super Mario Brothers, because when I saw it, I was like, this was such a mediocre movie. It didn't do much for me, but pretty much all of the fans loved it. And so I was like, well, it did
It's a
its
good time.
job. I'm so
Yeah.
that is something as a critic I do take into it doesn't change my opinion, but it does kind of make me think a little bit differently about the film if they did it, if they did the job.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm glad to hear. All right. Did you just not, are you like me with this franchise, David?
Oh yeah, no, I haven't seen any of them actually, and for no particular reason. I didn't see it when it first came out, and then I just never went back.
Yeah.
Now's the time.
Yeah, right.
Watch it in order.
Yeah. All right. So at number one was the Taylor Swift Eras Tour. We all had it as our pick. And so it was fun. I went the opening night here, and I was, of course, surrounded by people going absolutely mad. And it was fun to just be a part of it. And I was very impressed with the number of songs that she sung. Just the spectacle of it all was very impressive. Like the dancing, the sets, everything that went into every single era was, I thought, very impressive. I maybe knew 3 songs, maybe 3, maybe 4.
Speak your truth.
I'm just not up on sort of popular music, clearly. And it was just kind of funny because I just felt like I was 150 years old. The theater.
Oh no.
Know any of these songs, but I had a good time. It was fun to just be part of the experience. Did you see it, David?
Yeah, I saw it in the theater twice actually.
Okay.
I just loved it so much because and I also didn't really know many of the songs going. I knew more than that, like, maybe 10 or something like that, but yeah, it just is kind of the perfect concert film. Like, this is being like transported into the absolute best possible seat for a pop star at the absolute height of their powers. And like, you just can't get that experience anywhere else. And I mean, I've seen plenty of other concert films and it's just not the same. Like, this
I mean, everybody was comparing the Beyonce to the Taylor Swift. And I was like, that's just not fair. You're talking about Beyonce, who's done like a number of these kinds of concert / music movies. And it's not part of this like very iconic, very special tour. It's just, you just can't compare the two things.
Right.
They're just
and the Beyonce one is part documentary also, which like you go to this Taylor Swift thing, it's basically like going to the concert. It's like being in a concert experience. That's like watching a movie, which is a little different,
Yeah. And again, there's, the Lemonade movie, there's the Lion King one that she did. Like, you have other stuff. This was the first of its kind and it was at this moment. I just you just can't compare the two. It's not fair.
Yeah. I agree.
So
I agree.
Yeah, it was fun. You went and saw it, Manda?
I did not.
Oh, you didn't?
Yeah, I know. Here's the thing. I like her old stuff. I think I stopped listening around 1989.
Okay.
I didn't buy
a bunch of older stuff.
Yeah, no, there is. And I think that I do want to give it a go, and I should have gone in theaters. But yeah, I have a very weird relationship with T Swift. Not that I dislike her. There was a section where like Lover, Reputation, and then Folklore, and I think Evermore were the albums that I tried to listen to them, and I couldn't get into them. But I really liked Midnight, so I'm like, okay, now I'm back again. And then she re-released Red, and I'm like, oh my god, that's my album. And then she re-released like 1989, and I'm like, damn it! Like, then you kind of get back into it again. But I do agree that you can't compare the Eras tour with the Renaissance documentary, because I did go see that in theaters. I've watched like every single Beyonce doc, and I was just so impressed by her artistry behind the scenes. And I think she's just she's so talented as a director and what she wants to incorporate into her sets and everything. So you can just see that kind of unfold in her docs. But she's done it before, like you said. So this is a very different experience. So I do have to give it a go.
Yeah.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store. Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies.
Let's talk about a few that we had on our list that didn't end up charting. So you and I, Manda, we both had Ferrari on our list. And I thought that was a big stinker and ended up in my bottom 10 of the year. I thought the script was, I thought, really poor and phony and inauthentic. And I thought even the racing scenes weren't good. I was just like, this feels like I'm watching a movie on Lifetime.
It felt like that. I think for me, it comes down to the accents, and I'm such a stickler for
And
accents.
Shailene Woodley. Oh
what
my
is she
gosh. She was so miscast. I felt
embarrassed
for her.
Yeah.
I was like,
I felt bad for her.
Are there no Italian actors that you could have gotten? No, seriously. It's the same issue that I have with House of Gucci. And my girl, Lady Gaga, is Italian. So it just annoyed me that it was a Russian accent half the time, besides the point. But Adam Driver has 2 Italian performances under his belt now. And he got better playing Enzo Ferrari. I actually really liked him as Enzo Ferrari. I was very surprised. But if Penelope Cruz was not in this movie, my friends, it would have been way worse than
I've seen better biodocs on Lifetime. They had one on on Patsy Cline and Loretta Young last year. It was really good. Yeah. And they had one with Mahalia Jackson with Danielle Brooks, who's in Color Purple. Yeah. They had one with her that was really good. And this, I just thought it was bad. It was badly put together, badly written, badly acted, with a few exceptions. Weird. I don't know.
Yeah, it felt weird. Every time I was like, oh, I'm liking it. And then something would happen. I'm like, no, I don't like it anymore. And then it just kept going back and forth.
Yeah. So, I just felt like it felt like a bad TV movie, but not as fun.
I didn't hate it as much as you guys, but I wouldn't go as far as to say I liked it. It was like aggressively boring. So
yeah.
Like
like a TV movie biodoc is at least usually kind of juicy and like fun. But this wasn't. So, and then I had What Happens Later. I thought that bringing Meg Ryan back, it might do something, but it didn't, and it wasn't that great. So, but and then I had Journey to Bethlehem, which I think that it had potential. It could have been one of those Sound of Freedom kind of picks, and I actually did end up enjoying it. But I'm a musical person, and I thought that it did a good job of kind of challenging their audience a little bit. It took something that could have been really boring as far as the Bethlehem story, and they tried to make it basically a romance, the romance between Mary and Joseph, and they even have kind of like a meet cute at the beginning, and I thought they were pretty creative with the music. I actually got to interview the director, Adam Anders, and he is one of the guys behind Glee, and you could feel that. There's a whole song with Joseph battling the angel and the devil, and they're actually there in the song, and
oh wow,
it was like kind of creative, and I just felt like they were pushing their audience just a little bit, saying like that we're not going to be like safe and boring, and that they could have done. And Antonio Banderas has a pretty fun hamming it up villain song in it, and overall I like the music way better than Wish, I can tell you that. And it was kind of fun for me because this is the first movie that I've ever been like quoted in national like
I
campaign or
love
whatever
that.
promo.
Nice.
So that was sort of fun
Nice.
as I
Right
read
on.
it.
That's so great.
Yeah. So that was fun. I think for its audience, it was about as good as it was going to be. So I give them some
That's
credit
fair.
for that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you had Priscilla, Manda, on your list, on your ranking, and it
Yeah.
was a favorite of yours for the year, right?
It was a favorite of mine. I really loved it. I think that Sofia Coppola is somehow like just underappreciated. And I really thought that because Elvis came out last year, that would give a push to Priscilla. So I guess that didn't end up happening for her.
Yeah, and it
Yeah.
doesn't seem to be going anywhere as far as awards either,
No,
which
it's
I thought it might.
heartbreaking. Yeah. Especially
I,
for Kaylee Spaney. I think she did an excellent job
yeah,
as Priscilla. And also for makeup and hairstyling, it's not on the short list for Oscars. And I think
yeah,
that's
that's
like
surprising.
completely
That's really weird.
absurd.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
surprising.
Because her hair
Yeah.
and her makeup like
Oh,
literally defined Priscilla throughout those
yeah.
years. And they were crucial years to show her transformation. So I thought that was just really weird.
Yeah, that is
Um,
weird.
but she's another one that misses a lot, Coppola, too, because she's not in the club.
Yeah.
So
I didn't love it, but I know you did. And so that's
did.
cool.
Yeah.
Did you see this one, David?
Yeah, I
Priscilla?
liked it. I didn't love it either, but I liked it for sure. I think this is another movie like The Iron Claw that A24 is kind of dropping the ball on. Like,
Maybe they just
it
had too much.
it could be, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
definitely liked it though. And yeah, you're right. The performance-wise and makeup and hairstyling wise, like should
Right.
be being talked about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely.
And then you had The Color Purple as an honorable mention.
Mhm.
And I ended up, like I said, I saw it twice.
Yeah.
Well, the first time, actually, I'm getting my stories. I told this on the other podcast today. So I actually saw it twice, The Color Purple, because the first time I saw it, I was really tired, and it didn't have anything to do with the movie. I was just tired.
Yeah. It happens.
And so it was a double screening day. We watched Color Purple and Dream Scenario, and I was just tired. And so when I found out they were doing another screening, I sent them an email and said, "Hey, can I please go again? I'm sorry." And they were nice enough to let me go again. And I really enjoyed it. It ended up at 14 on this. It would have actually been Godzilla -1 was given our ranking, would have been the next one, the next number 13, and The Color Purple 14. And I think that they did just about as good as you could do of taking this super depressing story and like flipping it to something that was like empowering and about perseverance. And like in the ads when they said, "Oh, this is a crowd pleaser," I was like, "What are you talking about?" And then I watched it and I'm like, they did about as good as you could do of turning this material into a crowd pleaser. And I really did enjoy it. It didn't make my top 15, but it was close. Did you see it, Amanda?
I haven't seen it yet, unfortunately. I just
Mhm.
didn't have time over the Christmas break to actually get to it, but I do want to see it. I love a good musical, and I think
Yeah.
that again, what bothers me the most, and this applies to Wonka, this applies to Mean Girls coming out literally next Friday.
Oh, they've
They're
done
not
such a horrible job with Mean Girls. Oh my gosh.
like they're not marketing it as a musical, and I think that's where you're losing majority of your audience. And I understand that like it doesn't
Yeah.
test well, that people want musicals, but guess what, people want musicals, and we would
Mhm.
like to know if it's going to be a musical. Like we want that, we want to see that. So
Like
I think there's a disconnect there.
if you don't want to make musicals, then don't make musicals.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
don't not advertise your musical as a musical. 'Cause
Yeah.
what they've done instead with Mean Girls is they have made it look so generic and terrible that
Right.
the only reason to see Mean Girls is because it's Mean Girls the musical. I would
Exactly.
have zero interest, zero in seeing
Yeah.
it if I didn't know that there was the Broadway musical and the song and everything like that. Why would I could just
Yeah.
watch the original. Why would I be interested?
Right.
People
And-
genuinely think it's a remake. That's what's so
Yeah.
upsetting about this.
Yeah.
And I
Like,
don't blame them because that's what's been sold. And
Yeah.
why would anybody want to see that? I have no idea.
yeah.
Yeah.
It
Because
bothers
it's not
me.
like it's one thing if it's because these Disney remakes, they can get away with it because it's like they're taking something that people experienced as children and they're
Mhm.
supposedly making it grown up because it's in live action, right? But with this, it's already a live action Mean Girls movie when it was
Mhm.
made. So why would you want to see a remake? There's no reason
Yeah.
unless it's a
Exactly.
musical, which it is. So
And it's not that long ago either.
I'm
Right.
so annoyed about this.
No, it's annoying because I remember I think a tweet came out that they said that they had like an audience test screening for it, and they're like, yeah, musicals don't do well according to like like these stats. And I'm like, we'll get a new batch of people in there, man. Like, what are you like? What are you doing? Like,
What idiots? Greatest
that.
Showman, La La Land, Frozen. I
Like,
mean,
you want those musicals. You need them. Like,
just
I don't
because
know.
West Side Story didn't do well? I mean, come on. That was COVID. So
Yeah.
stupid.
Yeah.
Ah, that makes me annoyed.
I
Anyway, did
feel
you
you.
see The Color Purple, David?
I haven't yet. No, I need to catch up on that.
I liked it. I thought it was good. But I am very easy to please when it comes to musicals.
Yeah.
Let's see. And then the only one you had, David, that didn't chart was Poor Things.
Right, which I read today. It just crossed, what was it, $10 million, and it's still only in 800 theaters. So it's
Yeah,
doing
that's true.
quite well. It could, have legs, and especially once award nominations start, coming
Mhm.
in. So
Let's see. It doesn't say on here the budget. Yeah, that's true. It has made $10 million. Uh, so what did you think of Poor Things?
oh, it's so good. One of my favorite movies of the year. It's just I love Yorgos Lanthimos, and it's insane. And Emma Stone just on fire between that and The Curse on TV. Just she's so good.
Oh, I haven't even heard of that.
Oh, it's great.
I have to watch that.
Mm.
Yeah.
And what did you think of it, Manda?
Oh, I loved it. It's like top 5 for me this year. So again, like Emma Stone delivers like a career best. If she didn't already have an Oscar for La La Land, which I did not want her to win, I'm so sorry. I apologize. I know
Yeah.
it's controversial. This should have been
No.
a lock for her, but because she has one, I wouldn't give it to her again so early in her career, if that makes sense.
I mean, we've
You
given
know?
doubles before. I mean, Meryl Streep, people
Well,
like that, why not?
it's
If she
Meryl.
would I mean, I do think she is fearless in the role, and I do think
She's
she deserves
incredible.
to win the Oscar. I mean, she was, and it's
Yeah.
not just people are like, oh, it's just the nudity. I'm like, no, it's not just the nudity. It's that she has the whole transformation of a character from a little baby all the way
100%.
to this
Yeah.
grown woman at the end and everything in between. And she's just
Yeah.
there's just nothing she won't do, whether it's crawling on the ground or like
Yeah.
and so yeah, I mean, it's a movie that I probably admire more than I love. I did recommend it because it was just so interesting to me. But I
Yeah.
do think that, and we talked about this in our best and worst that we did, Manda. But I do think that the Paris section is too long. I think it's a little redundant from
I think
what
that's
we
fair.
just had in the boat.
I
And then
agree.
to have like this long section in Paris. And overall, it's just a little self-indulgent. It's a little, but it was interesting. And I think if you're up for it, I think it's worth a watch. Is how I feel about it.
I think you just have to tell people that like if you have seen Yorgos Lanthimos, like his films before, you'll really appreciate it. But if this is like your first time watching one of his
Yeah.
films, then I don't know if I'd recommend it in all honesty.
You just
like
have to
it's
be like a real into the art house kind of films and
Yeah.
have a high nudity tolerance,
yeah.
which you just have to know who you're recommending it to.
Yeah, exactly. And like don't watch it with your parents, folks.
No.
Because I saw a tweet that they're like, you guys warned me about Saltburn, but like now no one warned me about Poor Things.
What?
And I'm like, oh Jesus. I'm like, just watch movies by yourself, guys. That's it. That's the key. That's what I do. I'm like, I'll watch it and then I'll recommend it to my parents. I'm like, there you go. Like then you can watch it by yourselves because I'm not doing it. I ain't doing
Yeah,
it.
I mean, I was trying to think if I could take my dad, if I could take my dad doesn't see that many movies, only a couple a year. I do
Yeah.
think he would appreciate Iron Claw, but
Do it.
it is pretty, I don't know. Like, I think he would appreciate it because he appreciates, moving stories.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's just so crazy, that whole movie, that they didn't even include one of the brothers.
Yeah,
I know.
it's so
I think
wild.
it would have.
What?
I honestly understand it because I was already like I was sobbing like the
Yeah.
entire second half. I was sobbing, and with each new addition, like yeah, of like every piece of information that I found out, I was like, oh God, I can't.
Yeah.
My
I mean,
heart
that
was
dad is a
breaking.
super villain. He is
Yeah,
just one of the worst people I've ever seen on screen. I was so mad at
100%.
him.
Yeah,
It just makes you so angry because you think of all the people that would just do anything to have a child,
yeah.
that want to have a child so bad, who would do anything. And here he's blessed with 5 sons and he doesn't care.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just unbelievable. So yeah, it was an interesting fall, that's for sure. And it was very interesting for me because I was constantly going in between Hallmark and these awards contenders.
Oh boy.
You got a
So
nice balance there, Rachel.
so now I got a little bit of a break in January, which is nice.
Yeah, good.
So, but thanks to both of you and congratulations, David, for winning. Very good job.
Yay!
Finally.
I'm jealous.
Finally.
I'm jealous.
And I thought about, should we do one for the spring season? But it's harder because I feel like, I don't know, I just feel like there's not as much. What are you going to talk about?
Well,
Yeah.
January is a wasteland.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
exactly.
I
Other than
think
the
January.
beekeeper. Yeah.
There isn't even another family film coming until Kung Fu Panda 4 in March, I don't think,
Jeez.
Yeah,
which is
it's like
bonkers.
it's literally dead season from January
Yeah.
to March right now. So maybe January to April too. Apart from
Yeah.
like Dune Part 2, I don't think there's anything like
Not much.
big coming
No,
out.
no.
Other than Madame Web.
Oh,
Woo!
boy.
February. Woohoo!
Well,
see where
thanks so
that's
much to
gonna
both of
fall.
you. This is really fun. And so, David, how can people follow you and your content and everything?
Well, you can check out Piecing It Together wherever you listen to podcasts and follow us on social media at Piecing Pod. And also with my music, this is 2024. I'm doing a thing called 24 for 2024. I'm releasing 24 singles this year. It's a very ridiculous, ambitious thing that I'm doing, very stupid thing. But the first and third Friday of every month, there'll be a new single out on all the streaming
Nice.
platforms. So just search for me, David Rosen. You could find my social medias at by David Rosen.
That's
awesome.
Yeah. Manda, what about you?
Yeah, you guys can always follow me over at AMX NDA Reviews on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. You guys can check out my website, candidxcinema.com, and my YouTube, Candid Cinema. I will be kind of switching it up because I did get a full-time job now, so I have to rearrange my scheduling, but we'll see how many movies I can watch this year. But yeah, that's where you guys can find me.
That's great.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Manda and I are going to she's going to be joining me on my blind spot series I do over on my
Yes.
blog.
So excited.
So some months we'll be watching the same ones, and some months we'll be watching different ones depending on if she's seen my blind spot picks. But yeah, it's gonna be fun. We're gonna be talking about movies we haven't seen before, and so check that out. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews all over social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. Check that out. Also, make sure that you check out the Hallmarkies podcast. Lots of fun stuff going on over there. And also, if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. That really helps a lot. And if you're watching on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. It helps so much. And also have the Patreon group, which is the biggest way you can support me. And have the merch store where you can get cool shirts like I'm a theater girl or I'm an animation girl. Check it out. And thanks so much to both of you. And we'll talk to y'all later. Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.